Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Shifting the Conversation. Today we have Xan Mattek with us, who will be speaking about Final Fest. Xan Mattek is a senior pursuing a BFA in musical theater, set to Zoom University graduate in just a couple of weeks. She works for the School of Performing Arts as a student assistant and is an active member of the Wichita music and arts community. She has worked professionally in regional theaters as well as for the Lovewell Institute for the Creative Arts, where she assisted high school students in writing a full-scale musical in 3 weeks. As soon as this whole COVID confusion is over, she plans to move to New York City to pursue her artistic career. Welcome, Xan.
Hello, I'm so happy that this is happening still. Thank you to Carter for setting this all up and for being brave enough to still create things in this really crazy, confusing time. Mostly just confusing. So, okay, I'm just gonna start sharing that screen. Okay, let's see. We go to, I'm gonna forget how to do everything now on, oh, this is, okay, present. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you guys about Final Fest Music and Arts Festival. We are an all ages event. We are sponsored by the city of downtown Wichita, but pretty much it's just me and 2 others that you'll learn about soon putting on this event. It was first put together 3 years ago. We're in our 3rd year, but because of COVID, we've had to postpone until the summer, hopefully the summer, but we've had 2 really successful years, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the history and what I've learned about community engagement and kind of the passion that I've learned from this. I always have been like socially active and aware, but this is the first big project that I've ever gotten to do that like really helps me see that to fruition. So this is, I'm on the right, and then Ryan Carballo is in the middle. He is an engineering student at WSU, and he is also a musician and a really good person. And then on the left is Joe Hagan. He started as an engineering student at WSU. He's from Minnesota. Ryan is from Michigan. I'm from Salina. But Joe started as an engineering student, but he is now a audio production major in the media arts degree. He took a leap of faith and decided to change his major. We all 3 met in the dorms in the courtyard of Shocker Hall. Joe and Ryan started a band. They're in a band together still. Joe and I are dating, and we are all 3 roommates. And I think it's important to mention that we spend a lot of time together. So like our meetings happen at our kitchen table, or they happen at a restaurant. It's a pretty organic thing, and it started pretty organically too. We got the idea for an all ages music festival very, very organically. Pretty much the number one thing that pushed us into this idea was getting kicked out of bars. We really wanted to be engaged in the music community. We wanted to see live music, and we wanted to get involved, but unfortunately there was a lack of all ages spaces that we were even allowed to be in to be involved. There was a lack of spaces for Joe and Ryan to play at, and there were a huge lack of places for their friends to even be allowed to go see them play, which was very, very frustrating for us. There was a time that I was kicked out of Barleycorns because I was trying to go see Joe and Ryan play in their bands, and I like snuck in the back door, as all you Wichitans know, and I got in, and there weren't enough people in the club, or there weren't enough people in the space for me to just like blend in, and a bartender came over and totally kicked me out, and I was like, no, I'm staying. It's crazy to kick me out. There's barely anyone here because none of us are even allowed to be here, blah, 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 blah. I kind of had a little bit of a breakdown on this poor bartender, but cut to me crying on the curb and cursing Wichita and cursing the situation I was in. I was really, really tired of not being able to participate in like what I thought was the most interesting part of Wichita culture. So we spent a lot of time complaining, and we spent a lot of time being annoyed that we weren't allowed to stay out past 9 p.m. on Final Friday, or not that we weren't allowed to stay out, but if we wanted to, the only place we could go was Old Chicago, and like we all know that frustration. And so this brings me to a quote from Emily Brookover. She's our downtown Wichita point of contact, and we were in a meeting with her the other day. She put it pretty plainly that there are bitchers and that there are doers. And so we decided in that moment, and in moments following that that last final getting kicked out moment, that we were going to do something about it. We decided that we were going to make something that we were allowed to be at, and that we were going to enjoy it, and that we were going to enjoy ourselves, and that other people would be able to enjoy themselves in this space too. So as we were facing this challenge, we were faced with lots of questions. We knew why we wanted to do it, but we didn't know what it was. We didn't know how we were going to do it. We didn't know if we were going to need money. We didn't know if anybody was going to say yes to 3 college students. It's not like we were like business majors, or it's not like we were from this hodgepodge point of view. And we had to ask a lot of questions, and we had to make a lot of decisions. So eventually we started making decisions. We started making decisions about like where we were going to do it. We got lots of no's initially about the space. We hit a bunch of roadblocks like over and over again about where we were going to do it. But eventually we had an idea of doing it at the pop-up park. So that's where the first year was. And then we also knew that we needed money. We also knew that we needed connections with bands. Those connections with bands came a lot easier than, say, how to get the stage. But eventually we partnered with Downtown Wichita, and we learned that they kind of needed us just as much as we needed them. We were able to give them fresh ideas and like a younger point of view, and they were able to give us connections like the stage and how to get porta potties. We also made decisions about sponsorships. We made the decision that we wanted to ask local businesses, and not only did we want to do that because it's better like theologically to do that, that's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to like go ask banks or whatever. Like we didn't want to get a loan. We wanted the community to invest in an event that was going to be for them. And then we also learned, asking all these smaller businesses, that if you pitch to businesses with like confidence and charisma, and you have a good idea, local businesses are the number one people who are going to be very, very receptive to that kind of energy. And they were. And through the years, we've had returning sponsors because what we did, they were able to trust what we did, which was really cool. We also made decisions about wanting to include visual arts as well as music. So these were kind of the pillars of our event, and we were able to see those through really well. But I think the most integral and most important part was thinking about our mission statement. This will be the only time where I'm like reading off the slide, but we like really carefully crafted this. It's in a lot of our grant proposals that we've now gotten to do because we've grown. But so the Final Fest Music and Arts Festival is an all ages music and arts event featuring local and regional musicians and artists. The festival aims for inclusivity regardless of age, race, gender, culture, or creed. This is demonstrated by the wide variety of performers, musicians, artists, and food trucks involved with the festival, as well as the accessible, centralized event location. So all of that sounds really good, and all of us really, really like to say, like, we're going to be in a diverse and inclusive event because that's what we care about, and we know all these like culturally very interesting groups, and we want them to be at our festival. But just personally, I have a real problem with being like the girl who cried diversity. So I kind of like refuse to be that person, and B, I challenge myself and others, because I wasn't the only person putting up the lineup. You know, I had my team members and my like sponsors that we had to face difficult challenges in being like, no, I don't want this band to perform because we have 3 other bands that sound exactly like them. So we were definitely faced with those challenges. It reminds me of a quote. "Fear not, my lord, we will not stand to prate. Talkers are no good doers, be assured. We come to use our hands and not our tongues." That is a brilliant way of saying you got to walk the walk. So that's what we did. And we were really dedicated to being an authentically all ages event. And we did this by choosing a date and a location that was going to be centralized. We did it on Final Friday. So people who were just walking by that may never show up at these kind of music events, they're never going to show up in basements, or they're never going to show up at events where you have to go to the Facebook event, type in the location, and then kind of go to the location and walk around a couple blocks to find it. Like that was never our plan, and we never wanted to be like underground or exclusive. So we made deliberate decisions in order to not do that. So we could have all ages of people. We wanted it to be safe for children, and we wanted it to be comfortable for older people, and we also wanted it to be safe for teens as well. It will always be like an alcohol-free event, and will also be always free of charge. And the next thing that was very important to us was to actively seek out bands with different ethnicities, gender identities, ages, sexualities, and cultures. And it was really important that these bands didn't all look the same back to back. The lineup wasn't going to be 6 of the same bands. Like it was never going to be that. And so we really actively challenged ourselves to not have all the bands look alike, but also because it's music, we didn't want all the bands to sound exactly the same too. And if you challenge yourself to include different points of view, that's how you put on a good event, you know, and that's how you uplift the culture of your event. So different points of view equals better event, better art. Like everybody, I guess not everybody knows, but like, in my opinion, the best like artistic ventures are ones that have a really poignant or unique point of view. And in a large lineup, in putting together a large lineup in a big piece of art, which is basically how I see our event, the more different a point of view can be is better. for the culture, because if the bands you choose are more representative, and also if the bands that you choose and the artists that you include and the people you choose to work with and the food trucks and blah, 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 if they're all represent, you guys can't respond, but representative of what the community looks like, people are going to be, they're going to be more enriched, and the culture is going to be more enriched. And another important thing is that we wanted to push Wichitans and the people who were going to be at our event. Like, we knew that the people who show up to shows are going to show up to this show, but we wanted to push them out of their comfort zone just as much as we wanted to make the people who don't usually see themselves or hear themselves in the music that they get to see in Wichita just as much as we wanted them to be comfortable. So we wanted to simultaneously be pushing people out of their comfort zones and making people feel at home, which is like not an easy thing to do, but we keep learning how to do it better. And so I'm brought to a quote from by Julia Cameron, who is the author of The Artist's Way. The reward for attention is always healing. And I put this because engagement to me is like very, very important to the health and happiness of a community. And engagement is important to the well-being of community. And I feel like Final Fest helped me, and hopefully help the audience, like be more invested in our surroundings, because if we learned how great it felt to like truly care about what was happening around you, and how great it felt to like be involved, you could pay more attention to like what was happening around you. And Final Fest was always intentional about the lineup. We were intentional about the lineup because it helped the audience be more engaged. And that brings me to my point that engagement isn't just about, like, we hear community engagement and like social practices a lot. And I always feel like there's something very selfish in that. It can be very selfish. It can just be like, a person who owns the space wants the space to be used, so let's call it community engagement. Or the person, the mayor of the town wants the young people to stay in the town because it's better for the economy, not because it's better for the young people to be there, you know. Or like for us, for example, like, yeah, it looks great on a resume to have like this leadership position, but like, what did that leadership position do for the community? And that's what's really important to me, because I really feel like engagement is about the well-being of the people who are doing the engaging, not the people who are activating the space or whatever, you know. And so our goals really shifted. My goal in it has shifted a lot, and like my understanding of engagement has shifted a lot, and inclusion has shifted a lot. And I want to share a little video from last year to end. I want to end because I think it synthesizes our goal really well. This is Said Solemn, Chase Groth. He was an opener. We had never met him. We had barely ever heard him. He had like one song on SoundCloud, and he has ended up to be like my favorite performance that has happened at Final Fest so far. You can still see this, right? Yeah, okay. Can you hear it too? I've never felt more at home than I do right now. Okay, one sec. Wait, you couldn't hear that or see that?
I was able to hear it, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah, I couldn't see it either.
You share then. Here we go. Now you can see this?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never felt more at home than I do right he put together this loop. He recorded us singing the loop of I've never felt more at home than I do right now. And then he was able to do this. And that made me feel pretty at home. And that's it.
Amazing. Thank you, Xan. I think we'll open it up for questions. If any of our audience members have anything they want to talk further on or touch on to say to Xan.
I don't know if there's a raise your hand feature, but I'm just gonna ask my question. How did you create the connections to access the different people that you were seeking to perform at your music event? What was that process like?
A couple of different ways we were able to do that. One, in all of our, we were just the kind of people who were seeking out these bands anyway, which is, we're lucky to be able to do that. We knew these diverse groups, and we were able to say hey, personally, I want you to be at this festival. And then also reaching out to those that we know are in that community already, or not that community or whatever, asking hey, we'd love another hip hop group at our event, or hey, we're really lacking in this area, we want some queer artists, help us find those people, because we'd really like them at our festival. Asking those people who we know have those connections, just making a web, and it's an uncomfortable conversation for people who are not in that. I'm a woman, that's great, but I can't just look at a person and be oh, they're probably gay, I'll have it's not, that's not how it works. And so you have to craft a question like that. You have to be intentional, and you have to be sensitive and empathetic to those answers. I don't think it's not weird enough that I would not ask that. This year we were seeing a gap in gender identity, and so we asked somebody that we knew was in a circle of people we were able to ask, and then they were able to give us names, then we were able to go and ask.
Fierce.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two. My first one is, what have you personally found Final Fest has brought to the Wichita community in your experience for the last few years?
I feel Joe, Ryan, and I know more people now. We know more people to ask to be involved in our event, so we can grow it. And then, I don't know, I guess I just trust other people's intentions a little bit more when I go see shows. I can kind of discern oh, this is an event where they were just kind of asking their friends to do it, which is not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, but sometimes for me, I want to push myself in those spaces. I want to hear stuff that I've never heard and whatever. And then, and I can see the difference between like, oh, this is I can tell that they booked this band because it sounds really great with this band. And I bet they never would have thought of asking them, but I'm glad they did. I guess that's what it means. To the Wichita community, I think it brought another all ages space that people were allowed to be at.
Mm.
Even if it's once a year.
Yeah, I completely agree though. I think it filled a much needed gap in the Wichita music community.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you have a question before I ask my next one?
What have you learned the most? What's been the most exciting? Oh, I guess it's two.
The most exciting thing is like growing the confidence to know that I can put on something big that it can do well, and it just makes me more confident in like personal ventures. I have proof that I like can do big things, you know, because it doesn't feel so big now, but like when we were first doing it and just seeing like problem after problem we can solve, it was very like daunting, but now like learning from those challenges has been like really cool, and I feel like I can apply it in different places in my life. Morgan, do you have
You're so cool. You're so cool. Yes, my other one is, what would you do if you were to receive more funding? Like, what would you do with those funds?
Bring bigger bands in, like have a headliner who's like a headliner. And we tried to do that a little bit this year, and because we grew our budget this year, and our budget is larger this year, and now we're able to
We want the greeting. They're really expensive.
This is being recorded.
Oh, shit.
What was I saying? Our budget is bigger. Oh, we're able to pay our bands this year, which is great, and that was a huge goal that we were able to check off. I think it's to happen. It's gonna happen. It'll happen in July. Yeah, so we were able to check off that, and then a big goal is to have a big headline.
Okay. I want to ask a personal question about how the three of you work together. What do you each bring to the team? What makes you guys a powerful unit?
Yes, what makes us a powerful unit? So, Joe's role is to contact all the bands and to be like the sound contact and like this is a music festival contact. And then Ryan keeps us aligned with budget and like logistical stuff, like remembering that we contact the like maintenance people and whatnot. And then I'm the point of contact for like the artists and the installations and the volunteers. So that's what we do, like that's like our physical job things, but then together we work all because like we're able to think really bigly, we're able to think scale. Like I have a artsy fartsy brain where I'm like, I have this really specific idea and I know what the theme is of it, and the theme is this, and this is what it should be. And then Joe is able to say like, oh, this is how we could implement this. And what if we did it this way? And then I'm able to be like, yeah, let's do it that way, but maybe we still need to remember that this is the point of view. And then Ryan is able to say like, okay, well, how do we do that? Like, what is the checklist of things that we need to do in order to make that happen? And then, yeah, it's just like that's the cycle of how the problem solving goes usually, which is, I'm so lucky that it's able to work like that, I think. And I'm kind of like personally in an artistic journey right now of allowing not telling myself no so much, because that's something that every single one of you just went. So working in a team and working on a big goal and I do need to be told no sometimes in this, like in a confined space, just being able to like be gracious enough to be like, okay, yes, like I probably should pump the brakes on that. I probably should think about how many cameras we need, even though that's not what I want to think about right now. Like we all push each other to put on different hats too, which is good. Like I can be like, Ryan, you need to think about this bigger. Like we don't need to whatever, that's not the time. And we're all always communicating like that's not the time, or this is the time, or stuff like that. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
You're cool.
I have
just affirmations. That's all I have. Go ahead, Carter.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think it's one thing for somebody to kind of just stumble upon the event, like so many people do with Final Fest, because it is so impromptu. But it's totally different to be able to sit down with you and hear about it, like the backstory behind it. Like I did not know the story about you crying in barleycorn, so I'm glad that was shared. And I just think it's great, like the progression of the whole event and how it's evolved over the past years, and so much growth in each year. And I'm just very proud of you guys as a whole. You work so cohesively as a team, and I think it's really great. And I think you offer the city something that is much needed. So thank you for sharing the whole story with us. I love it.
I love you guys.
Thank you, Xan Mattek.
Yeah. And I love
your presentation was so clever, and like just specifically like the way you present information is really refreshing to just sit, because you're honest and you make excellent transitions, but also like it just gives me joy to see you like show off the hard work that you put into this, because I've gotten to see like the tiniest glimpse of it, and it's just so cool to like get to watch you in action and get to see your specific Xan perspective when it comes to Final Fest. So thank you for sharing and inviting. It's been really cool to be here for that.
Thank you, Carter, for inviting me.
Thank you all for tuning in. It was really great. I loved having this little discussion about Final Fest. So thank you all for coming this week.
Thank you, Carter.